Hello, all. Hope you're doing well. We're continuing with our weekly portion review, and we have started the book of Shemot, the book of Exodus. Um, After concluding Genesis with its fantastic stories, we're now moving into um, the the building and the story of the nation of Israel, the people of Israel, and we obviously have the whole story of Moses and the burning bush and the circumcision on the way back to Egypt and him meeting with the elders. So it's a jam-packed portion, as many of them are. It's very exciting to be moving on with our story. Uh, I wanted to talk a little about Moses' interactions in general throughout this in this period of transition from the Prince of Egypt to ultimately the leader of Israel. We touched about this a little last year. But following Moses killing the Egyptian, right, that was hurting the slave, the next verse talks about Moses then visiting the Hebrews, right? He's decided at this point that, like, my history with the Egyptians or my path with the Egyptians has ended, and I'm going to try to connect to my Hebrew brothers. Now, suddenly he needs to prove himself to establish sort of his status amongst his people, right? They're challenging him right away when he sees two of the Israelites fighting, and he asks them to stop. And they claim to him that don't intervene with us the way you've intervened. Like, we know about what happened already with this murder of this Egyptian. And Moses then is facing a dilemma, right? He says, indeed, the matter is known, right? This is in Exodus 2:14. Now, generally, we would be thinking that he's aware now that people know about the cover-up, the murder that he killed, and covering up in sand. So that's why he's concerned that people are going to know what he did. But Rashi, the commentary, explains that in that moment, Moses actually realizes why the Israelites deserve to be in bondage, because he realized that inside the people themselves, there's no unity. There's actually informants over here. They feel comfortable ratting each other out. And if a people got to this kind of place where there's disunity among them, perhaps they deserve to be in this bondage right now. And by saying this, Moses seemingly really retracts from his desire to redeem Israel at this stage, right? When we say he went out to see in his brother's suffering, we discussed last year how he was trying to identify who his brothers are. And seeing the way they're interacting with him and the way they're treating him, he decides, these are no longer my brothers, potentially. Now, immediately after this, Moses leaves Egypt and he flees to Midian. And there he connects with a central spiritual figure there, who we know as Jethro. Now, beyond the understandable escape from Egypt, right, because he had to go, it seems by doing so, Moses is really trying to connect specifically with the Midians instead of the Israelites. This would be like the claim. And Rashi, again, states regarding the verse that he sat in the land of Midian by the well, that here too, he's aware, when Moses goes to the well by Midian, he's aware that Jacob, and he learned from Jacob, who found Rachel at the well. So perhaps we could say that Moses is aware of the pattern and the situation that led to the birth of the nation of Israel. And here he's trying to do the same thing with the Midianite nation, right? He connects with Jethro, who is obviously a loyal representative of the school of Abraham. And he's also teaching him these sacred teachings. And it could even be said that Moses actually returns to his own Hebrew roots through Jethro, right? To the extent that the Midrash even tells us, it's a longer Midrash, but the Midrash tells us how Jethro taught Moses the actual explicit name of God, the Tetragrammaton, which was engraved on a staff in Jethro's garden. And again, that's a larger story which you guys could look into. And we see from this that Moses really receives a deep internal knowledge of Judaism from an external place, from the outside, from Jethro. Now, we know that the story continues, and eventually at the burning bush, right, God reveals himself to Moses and tells him in Exodus 3:7, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt. Right? So by this statement, he's clarifying to Moses that, yes, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So your path through Jethro made sense. However, my people, these are my chosen people. It's not Egypt and it's not Midian. Despite the fact that the Israelites were informers and perhaps this delayed their redemption, nevertheless, they're my people and they need to be redeemed. And we could also look at the statement where that same verse where he says, the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, which we could stress the fact that because they're in Egypt, because they're in this environment, this has turned them into informers, right? Rabbi Kook famously says about the Passover Haggadah, when we talk about how the Egyptians mistreated us, in Hebrew, it says the word Ra was sort of evil, thinking that they were evil to us, but he interpreted that they are the ones that made us behave in this wicked, evil way. So Moses shouldn't be blaming us, rather we are just reacting after years of trauma of being slaves. Now, there's even another perspective we could look at this, how there's a famous rabbi, the Maharal from Prague. He talks about how every nation really chooses to idolize what it feels that it lacks, right? So you could argue that, or he argues that the European nations that are descendants from the Germanic tribes, right, they are generally prone to bloodshed. So when they wanted to repent, they adopted a religion that identifies a God with love, right, which would be Christianity. And in contrast, the Eastern nations, right, which faced issues of robbery and excessive lust, they decided to repent. They took on or embraced a religion of strict measure, right, and which we could look at as Islam and as Deen, as it's called. And each nation turns to what really completes its deficiency. So you could say that since the Israeli nation, right, advocates for unity, we must feel all the more the taste of division, right? And precisely from an extreme division, we arrive at this dialectical completion of what we're missing, which is unity. And now more than ever, where Israel is dealing with a lot of disunity in its midst, perhaps we could see this as an opportunity again to return to our place of unity from a much stronger position. Once we've really hashed out and heard each other out fully, hopefully we could come together. I wish us all a Shabbat Shalom. Take care.